All right. All right. Just for those, it looks like everybody that's on here has been to the other sessions too. So, but just as a reminder, I'm going to be on the board a lot. So if you'd like to click the 3 dots and pin me, that'll help keep me front and center the whole time, regardless of who's talking. Just in the case of the other ones too, this content, we've got about 90 minutes worth of content and questions and things like that I typically have. So we've overextended time just to make sure that we have plenty of open opportunity to take tangents and have conversations about things that you guys care about during this process, okay? So feel free to unmute, interrupt me, ask questions through the whole thing. The plan for this session is we're going to be talking about metrics, okay? So over the last couple of weeks, over the last, what has it been, 4 weeks now, that we've gone through this, that I have walked through pretty much the building of what would be considered your sales playbook, right? We talked about ideal customer profile. We talked about building your personas, building out your messaging, all of those pieces. And then we moved to, okay, now how do I take that message and get that in front of anybody, right? And communicate that. Then now how do I understand whether or not that person is somebody that would need my services and is a good fit? How do I present my solution to them? How do I manage through that process, right? So we've got all of our processes down. We've got our content figured out. It's now time to start deploying that and executing on it. And Ritu, you said, oh, I did the BAM FAM thing. And now everybody's starting to execute on those things, right? So now it's time to go, okay, what do good numbers look like? How do I measure myself for success? How do I know if I'm doing well in this category and I don't have to worry about it, or I need to focus there a little bit more and try to improve? Okay, so that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about what does success look like, where should I focus, and once I have this rhythm down, how do I drive scale? How do I really take this and blow it up a little bit more? Yes, Ritu.
Dan, we can't read your whiteboard today. I don't know if it is out of focus or something. At least I can't. I don't know if it is just me or.
Let's see if it focuses now. I don't know why.
Okay. Can see you clearly. It just, it's not readable. It just looks some black something. Okay.
Okay. I think it's a little like dead marker. So I will write bigger with the content that I'm going to be talking about up here. Okay. And hopefully everybody will be able to read it through that side of it. Okay. All right, let's talk about reporting in general, okay? What I am going to be sharing with you when it comes to metrics and detail and data is going to be more focused specifically on what do we care about when it comes to the sales process? What do we care about when it comes to executing on the things we just talked about? I'm not going to talk about business level metrics and health of company and things of that nature, but we're going to be talking about a deep dive into sales, so that I think the biggest challenge sometimes as leaders of a company and bringing on your sales team is it's hard to say, is that person successful? Are they doing the right things? Are they executing the way I expect them that will lead to revenue for us, right? And so those are the metrics we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about what does success look like for the individual, okay? In general, though, when it comes to reporting, I'll give you an idea of what I typically see when I start working with founders on like a dashboard or reports, okay? I see stuff that looks like this. Like there's a report and it's like, boom, there it is. And then they've got their next report and it's like, boom, right? And it's just big numbers. Right? It's a snapshot in time. Okay. They're saying, oh, look, we've closed 128 deals, or I didn't even recognize that I put the same numbers. That's weird. We closed 128 deals. We've got $12,000 worth of revenue right now. And it's like, when I start asking them questions about the health of their sales team or trying to get them to understand where they are right now, the problem is that it's only a snapshot in time. It's hard to, I said, is that better than what you did last month? Or what did you just sell last month? Or are you guys trending up right now? Are you guys getting better, getting worse? What's your average sale look like? What are some of the, like, I just know where we are right now, right? And what your reports need to start looking like more often is we need to have a date element along the bottom here, and then what we're measuring along this side so that we can start seeing trends, okay? So that we can start seeing things progressing over time. So everything that I'm going to be sharing with you needs to either look like this on a report or look like this on a report. Lines and bars, right? We need some kind of time element to visualize success over a period of time or failure, right? We want to see the dips, we want to see the changes, and it would be a huge benefit if you were able to create like a goal in there too and show a line so that you can easily look at it and go, "Ooh, we're above goal. We're above the line." Okay? So does everybody understand that? It's really like, I see so many reports that are just a snapshot, and it's so hard for you to understand your business better if it's just a snapshot, right? You got to dig into the data and start understanding it better. And in a quick shot, I can see the entire month. If these were weeks, I can see an entire year and the progress over a year in what we've been doing. Yes, Ritu.
Are you going to talk about sales funnel down here?
Well, yes, we're going to talk a little bit about the funnel and how to look at your pipeline.
Right.
So
okay.
From the point someone's generated interest to the point you close them.
Correct. Yeah, because sometimes it may not be direct like revenue in the door, but more like, oh, it's coming next week, it's coming next month. And that's where sure, I've been hearing that for weeks and months now. So
yes, that, you've hit on what we're going to talk about a little bit more, a little bit later, which is the fact that you're going to put together some data to understand, is this person blowing smoke, or is this actually look like something that could come in? Okay, because that's something you get a lot from salespeople is we're actually very positive minded, optimistic people that are like, oh, it's always going to come in. Everybody loves us. We're always going to win a deal. And it's like, it's just not the case. We got to look at data to realize the probability of winning that deal. Okay. So trend analysis is what we want to do. Trend reporting is what we want to do. Okay. And so let's start talking about the different metrics that we care about and how to manage the different people on your team with data. Okay. So we'll start at the bottom and we'll say, let's talk about the SDR function and the person who is in an SDR role. Those are the guys prospecting every day. Okay. We'll talk about what are the things we measure and what are good numbers associated to that. Okay. So first thing I look at is I look at number of calls. Okay. Number of calls. This is an activity-based metric because I know everything starts here. If someone is not getting on the phone and doing the activity to get in front of somebody, we're not going to get leads. We're not going to generate opportunities. We're not going to close business, right? So the very first thing is I've got to see how many calls they're making every single day. Okay. And so my trend analysis usually looks like a daily column with probably a look back of anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks. Okay. What does the last several weeks look like? And by day. Okay. That gives me a trend of how things are going and have we had any dips and why. Okay. So number of calls, I do that by day, by week in a trend. Okay. If we look at this one, average number of calls I would expect someone in a full-time role to do is anywhere between 60 to 70. You guys see that? Okay, 60 to 70 calls per day. Ritu, for you, like if you were a founder just doing this and you guys are trying to execute, you probably want to do like, try to make 20 calls in an hour or 15 calls in an hour and be done with it and focus on something else for the rest of the time, but get your calls in every day. But if it was somebody that was doing this every day, it would be like, they've got about 4 hours to make calls every day. They should lock down 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon, probably be able to make anywhere from 15 to 20 calls. So I'm going to make it a minimum of 60 calls every day.
So,
Right.
and if somebody,
Go ahead.
if somebody is in SDR role and this is the only thing they are doing all day long, shouldn't that number be higher?
Well, the only thing they're doing all day long is not necessarily the case. You don't want them to burn out just because they're on the phone all day long and it's the only thing. They need to be responding to emails. They need to be making sure that their list is ready and built for the next day. They need to be in a little bit of meetings to be able to say, are you doing the right things, and getting a little coaching from their managers and or from you potentially through this, right? They need to have these little breaks of ability to shift their perspective away from being rejected all the time, you know? So typically the calendar is broken out where we block some time and then we step away and we do other activities and then we get back engaged again. And like, I'll tell them for the first 30 minutes every day, I want you to do some market research and just read some articles that have come out recently about our stuff. Make sure you get your head straight, make sure you're ready to go, and then start your call blocks. And we execute on a call block for 2 hours and we take a break and we respond to emails and we, do some work on that side, take a break for lunch, come back, execute another call block, then do your responding to emails, all those things. And then at the end of the day, you set yourself up for success for the next day. So you're looking at your list that you have ready for the next day. You're reviewing the things that you're going to be doing. You're setting and going, do I have enough calls to make for tomorrow? Am I set for success? Okay. So there's this pattern that starts to happen. And within that, you're going to mix your one-on-one meetings and team meetings and daily stand-ups and things like that you're going to engage with them on. Okay. But I would assume that someone can get anywhere from 4 to 5 hours a day without burnout. Okay. Just need breaks. Okay. So some folks, like, the more complex the conversation's going to be, the fewer the calls they're going to be able to make, because when they do get on a conversation with somebody that can go for 15 minutes, and then they've got to build out the opportunity in the system, and they've got to set the meeting, and they've got to get all the stuff right and make sure their notes are in there, right? But if it's a very transactional conversation, the number goes higher because they take 5 minutes, execute it, set the meeting, go to the next, right? So the faster you feel like your discovery call can go, the more calls they can make in a day. Okay, and I used to, when I managed teams in this nature, I used to say, if you didn't set a meeting in a day, I need you to be at 70 calls. If you set 3 meetings that day, it's okay if you're at 40, because I know the work and effort it goes into having those conversations and building out the pieces of the puzzle and things like that. So, but no meetings, no excuses. Be at the number.
So at least one meeting should be there every day, right?
Yeah, I mean, in general, when we get through the numbers, you'll start to see where that pans out. But typically, you're looking for somewhere between 3 and 5 meetings a week. So 1 a day would be amazing, but 3 a week is pretty darn good.
Got it.
Okay. There are companies that are doing 3 and 4 a day because it's just that quick and simple, and it's a huge need. There are people that are doing 4 in a month because it's very complex and it's a lot of work. But when they close a deal, it's a $120,000 deal, and it's easy to make sense of that, right? So, all right. So the next thing I look at, and people always ask me in this one, I'm surprised I didn't get this question, but the activity that I care about are calls. I don't care about emails. I don't care about any of the other things because I know that calls are what are going to drive the meetings for me, okay? If someone sends me an email and says, I'd love to have a meeting with you, I pick up the phone and I call them and I say, okay, let's get that meeting set. When do you want to set? I don't spend 5 minutes going, oh, what's a good time to set a meeting? And let me send them the email. And then they don't respond for another day. And they say, that time doesn't work for me. And so we take 3 days to set a meeting with them over email. I pick up the phone. Okay. And so I want my team focused on making calls as a result and having the meetings as a result of the calls. The emails are going to generate meetings for me. They're going to say, oh, that's great. That's good. But I expect those to follow. That's a nice indicator. It's something I'll look at, but it's not something that I care about as much as calls. Okay. So that's my one activity metric that I look at. Then from calls, the next thing I'm looking at is number of meetings set. Number of meetings set. Doesn't mean we've had the meeting yet, but it does mean that somebody has said, yes, I'm interested, and we set a meeting. There is a meeting on the calendar, okay? So on average, what I look for, like I said earlier, is anywhere from 3 to 5 a week, okay? Now, this is very subjective to your business. Like I said, the more complex, the less mature the market, meaning like I was selling an applicant tracking software. Everybody knows what that is. Everybody needs something like that. That's a mature market. It falls within this category. There's a lot of folks out there in the EdTech space right now that are breaking new ground, that are sharing new ideas, that are saying, guess what? You can solve that problem you never knew existed, really. That number is going to be lower, right? Because you're educating your market initially. You're trying to teach more. And so the early engagers are going to be a little bit less. And so we're going to try to evolve to this number, but we're not going to be there right off the bat. So if you're new into a market with a new idea and new thought, these are going to skew a little bit. Okay. If that makes sense to you. Okay. There's work to be done to educate the market. Okay. So once the meeting's set, the next indicator that I'm looking at is number of, I can call this a couple of different things. One is number of meetings held, or the other way to look at it is number of opportunities created. Created, C. Okay, so meetings held and opportunities created are basically synonymous to me in many cases because of the fact that once you have had that first meeting and they said, wow, this is really great, I'm creating the opportunity and moving it forward. There are a lot of companies though that will create the opportunity right here. And they'll say interest generated, boom, meeting, opportunity is in the system. Love that too, because you get to measure the difference between the two, right? You get to measure the conversion from one stage to the next. So you choose where you'd like to go with that. And so I've been using this meeting held as a more, it's either number of meetings held or number of opportunities created is the metric that I'm looking at there. It's the outcome of your meeting set. So what I like to see here is about an 85% conversion. Okay, so of the meeting set, I want to have 85% of those actually turn into opportunities or be held successfully, saying, this was good. I really want to move forward in the sales process. I'm going to move forward in the sales process. Okay. So anything lower than that, it's like, wait a second, we didn't qualify this person well enough. They didn't, you're going to have people that just don't show to your meetings. They're going to just like, oh yeah, sure, I'll have a meeting with you. I'm busy. I'm just going to get you off the phone. I'm going to have a meeting. And they don't do a really strong job of qualifying or building that emotion. And so they don't show up to the meeting. And so, you got to follow up. You don't get a hold of them and they fall into the 15% that just don't go through. Okay. That's just the name of the game. It happens. We're never going to get to 100% here. If you strive for perfection, you're not going to achieve it. You're going to be disappointed. But this is a really good number to work towards. That 85% of the people that said, yeah, I'm interested, will actually show up and be a good fit for what you do and want to continue. Okay. At the SDR level, this is all they can control. They're not able to control anything else. They can't control whether or not that sale gets closed. They're not managing any of the sales process beyond this. All right. So this is how as a leader, you're going to measure their effectiveness. Okay. This is going to be our volume metric. And this is going to be our quality metric. And this is just, are they actually doing their dang job? Right? So this is how we actually pay SDRs, is that we say, we're going to pay you for the number of meetings set, but not that much, just going to be a little bit for that. What we care about the most is the quality of those meetings being set. Are they held? Were they good meetings? Okay. So the way that you look at this as a leader in this, that there's always going to be a quota to this. Okay. And usually I set my quota here. And so this turns into my quota for my SDR. And I say, I need you to reach a certain number of meetings held in a given month. Right? I want to know that you're getting to, let's call it 12 meetings held in the month. If that SDR is at quota at the end of the month, awesome. What can I do to help? You need anything from me? Doing a great job. The only other indicator I look at is number of calls and say, if they're at the number of calls and they're at the quota, wow, they're killing it. There's not much more I can do to them. I'm just going to keep praising them and see what they can do to get to the next level of that. Maybe set 15 meetings that actually get held in the end of the month. If this number is low and they're doing a great job, I'm going to be like, we need to get more calls and double down on the end of that. Let's see what we can do to get you on the phone more and working through this. How come we can't get more calls out of you? What's happening with it? Because I think we can really bump this quota up in a big way. We can really get to a better number here. That's all I care about, right? If they're doing a good job here, it feels like the process is working, not a lot of coaching required. Let's just motivate, okay? If they're not at quota of number of meetings held, then I kind of look at this and I look between here and I go, are they setting enough to get them held? Okay, and if they're setting enough and they're not converting, then I'm going to be talking to them a lot about their discovery process. They're probably stopping way too short in it. They're not understanding the person well enough. They're not building enough emotion. They're struggling. Okay, and so they're not communicating effectively during that discovery process, and I'm going to dig in there. That's where I'm going to focus if that's the problem. If they're not setting enough meetings here, but their call numbers are great, then their message is not resonating with somebody. They're just getting hangups. The people are going, I'm not interested, not interested, not interested, right? They're making a ton of phone calls, but they're not getting through with either the phone tree or the message. And that's where I'm going to focus my attention when I coach them. Does that make sense to folks? These are just indicators of where we're going to pay attention and how we can support them. And the way that we talk to our SDRs and our sales reps and things like that, when we show them metrics, it's basically like people say one of the bigger problems in sales is that there's leaders that just manage based on the numbers. And it's really like, hit my numbers or you're fired. And that really is not the way that we should be managing. And if we can talk to them and say, the reason why we're looking at these numbers is so that we can educate ourselves better on where we should be focusing our attention to support you. Okay? These are the things that I care about in these areas. And when I run into these things, I'm going to help you with these things. Okay?
Question.
Sure.
Yes. Hi. So because I've been following your 10-day cadence, and it's working. So that's awesome. Yeah, no, it's actually working. I'm so happy. Yeah, it's awesome. But what I'm wondering now is, when you're saying this, is this just for calls or is it calls and emails? I think you mentioned something. So the 3 to 5 a week is a goal of, let's say, for the whole cadence or as you go through it, or is it just for calls?
Well, so the 3 to 5 meetings are for the entire cadence. But the indicator of success in there is really more, are they doing the activity of calling to make it work? Because the calls are going to be followed by emails, and the emails are just expected things. If I measured them by emails, they would just be like sending emails all day and like, oh, look, I got all my emails sent out, but I want to make sure they're making calls, because those are the more important aspect of it.
Okay.
But the 3 to 5 is like the entire cadence being managed. Okay.
Well, to be honest, what's really working for us as of now is in the emails we have a link to like a schedule a demo thing, and that's what's working. So not necessarily people making appointments to talk to me over the phone, but really more over email. But we are doing the calls also. So okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah. That sometimes is hit or miss. You know, I'm excited that that's working for you, because usually when I see that working, it means that your message itself is really exciting and really, really resonating with people. Like you hit something on the head.
I hope so. Well, yeah. I'm actually offering free stuff, so I think maybe that's what's exciting. But
maybe. But I've seen the
so
calendar.
it's working. That it's actually, I'm getting people on the phone, and it's, but it's working more than it was working before. It was hard for me before to get people to meet me and talk about what we have to offer. So I feel like this is success. But at the same time, the message is I'm offering something for free now. So yeah.
The early stage, that's where you are. But but I've seen the calendar link work really well on the, after someone says I'm interested, then like, hey, if I can't get them on the phone, I send them and say, that's great, here's a link to my availability, let's find some time, and then that works. I've seen it less effective in your case, but it's it's all about measuring and testing and trying, right?
I mean, not everybody shows up, and I'm also wondering about, because I haven't really looked at the numbers about your 85%. So one, not everybody shows up. That's one. But two, the people that show up and actually seem very interested. Maybe you'll talk about this later, but how long does it take for them to actually make the final decision? You know what I mean? Like I'm following it up, I do a follow-up email, but it's not like, oh, okay, I liked it. Yes, I want it tomorrow,
Right. Yours is probably, this number here is going to be lower for you. And what I mean by that is you're going to have people show up, but because you did not have the opportunity to have a conversation with them ahead of this, like that mini little discovery conversation, you're going to be pushing people out going, oh, not a good fit, not a good fit. They're self-selecting and saying, I'd like to talk to you, but you missed the opportunity to do the discovery conversation ahead of that. You should be doing that before you demo with them. You should be discovering and going, okay, let's talk about the challenge. Let's understand you a little bit better. And then you focus the demo on that. But you may realize that because that was a fast track up to that meeting, that this number is probably going to be more like 50% instead of 80%. Right. So I wouldn't worry about that being lower. It's just because you're doing 2 steps in one. That's all.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay.
By the way, Dan, just one quick comment I will add to that. I think if people do not have the Calendly type auto scheduler that Rocio is using, get that now. That was the best thing after slice of bread on the planet for me, not only for sales calls, but for investor calls, for candidate, for recruiting. Oh my God. I was kicking myself. Why didn't I do it sooner? So just a note.
Ritu, I was in the same boat with you. I was kicking myself at not doing that sooner. Like I was looking at all the ones coming in. I'm like, oh, I need to do that. I need to do that. And I finally did. And it was like, it's pretty life-changing.
Yes. Best $17 you will spend in your life. Best $17 a month.
Yeah, I was able to make it so that it's all for my inbound stuff and all for the people that are connecting with me initially. But man, I don't have to go back and forth, and I'm just like, oh, here you go. And
used to take 4 to 5 emails before coordinating, and the value of your time just multiplied by 1,000 with that one thing.
Great.
Yeah, right, true. And even before the cadence, sorry, last comment, we also added a button in our website, and that was the first thing that started working, like schedule a demo button already connected to the Calendly. That's also great, by the way. Yeah. Anyways.
Perfect. We need to now put a link to Calendly on here and, sponsored by, and see if we can't get some. All right. So, all right, this is the SDR metrics that we work off of, right? Okay. We don't want to go too much further. If we start judging them on closes, they don't have the ability to close. They get really frustrated, right? So let's only focus our attention in this area when we're trying to measure the effectiveness of that team member, okay? That this is going to tell us healthy team member. Quotas are number 1, and then we just work our way back through there to see where we can support them. And we make sure that they understand when we're looking at these metrics and talking to them. We'll talk about one-on-one meetings later in the next meeting, but when we're talking to them, that it's all about support, development, growth, not about you didn't hit your numbers and punishment, right? Okay, so one of the big mistakes people make when leading early stage folks is that they lead them like salespeople instead of leading like you got to teach, you got to be a teacher, you got to be a coach, you got to be a motivator. You got to help them instead of just think they know everything and give them a number and hold them accountable.
What if they claim they know everything and then they are not coachable? Then what do you do?
I wouldn't have hired them. When they get to that, if you're hiring an early stage person that thinks they know everything, that's a really big red flag, because you're in a company at this level. You do not need know-it-alls. You need people that are willing to grow and learn and develop and all that side of things. You don't need know-it-alls, because that just limits you significantly. So somebody's going to lock it all down and say, this is the only way to do it. This is the only thing that's ever going to work. And you don't know that. But what I've told you this whole time, all these different classes that we've been doing, or sessions that we've been doing, is all about saying, hey, I'm giving you a good foundation to have really strong odds, but what you should be doing is measuring and adjusting based on the successes that you're having, okay? This is a great foundation to start from. Now let's look back and measure and make adjustments and changes, and you're gonna learn, hey, I need to do it a little bit differently, or increase my outreach numbers to now, instead of 9 to 12 touches, I know that the 15th touch is getting me something better. And so I need to change that a little bit. But it's a great foundation, but you need to be able to be flexible and adjust and not be like, this is the only way we do things, right? So I'm not a big fan of the know-it-alls in the early stage, okay?
Yeah,
so
thank you.
It's a red flag. It's a red flag. All right, so now we've made it through the SDRs and we're going, okay, we just teed this up and it is now an opportunity. And our sales rep needs to run through the process of this, okay? So they've got to manage something all the way to close. And we've got to understand how effective they are. Now, these metrics that I just gave you, they're applicable to AEs because we're expecting them to prospect as well. They're just all smaller, right? Because they're the time of day that they have to prospect is very low, and the approach is more of like a target account approach where we're saying, as an AE, when you're prospecting, focus your attention on the highest, like the opportunities that would bring the best return for you. Not always in a dollar, but in like influential people that we're trying to sell. So like, I would look at my territory as an AE and say, who are the top 10 districts that I feel like if I won one of those, it would make a huge impact on the SDR's world because they can start using that district's name and generate more volume from that. So my attention is going to be focused on influential, not that doesn't necessarily mean the biggest districts because I want to influence in each tier, right? And so I'm going to look at those influencers and I'm going to focus my attention, make my 20 calls during the day to try to drive that. But the majority of your focus as a leader when you're looking at them is you got good prospecting activity, it's consistent, that's fine. Now let's move to how you're managing your funnel, okay? How are we managing the deals that are moving through your funnel, okay? And I'm gonna go in the reverse order that I did with the SDRs. We're gonna talk top level and go down on these guys, okay? So,
Jan, will you talk about prospecting? Is that where you are going next or no?
No. When you say prospecting, tell me a little bit more of what you're specifically asking about there.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering if one, prospecting is to be done by the SDR themselves. I mean, ideally, I would prefer that, but I can understand if somebody comes in, hey, where's your list? So that's one question. And two, you create a list. We created a bunch of lists. That was pre-COVID 2 years ago. A lot of churn has happened. So I gave this list to the SDR and he's like, oh, expert, I don't know what the percentage is. Nobody answers the phone. That's not even the right person. So just complaining and whining about that stuff. And I'm like, okay, let's go fix it if that is the case. So the question is SDR supposed to have a list served on silver platter, which I told him you can't, but how do you manage this? Like, I don't know, am I expecting too much when I say, hey, okay, here's a starting list, but there's a lot of churn that has happened in the last 2 years. Go fix it. Is that too much to ask for?
No, it's not too much to ask for. You can say, here's a starting list. I don't expect this to be accurate in any way. So call the district first. Or, just double check this name before you make the phone call. But all the numbers for the district level are all easily accessible, very public, easy to get to, not a big deal. I can go to the NCES database and download an entire list of phone numbers for districts in every state.
Does that have principal phone numbers and CES data?
No, it's just main phone numbers.
Main
right?
phone, right.
Just main phone lines. It's basic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I can go to every school and download their main phone number for the school. I can download data about enrollment and everything. It's all very publicly accessible.
Yeah.
And then the other side of it too is that the contact records that you are trying to get to are all basically online. Like 98% of emails and phone numbers and everything for these people are all sitting on their website. It's just sometimes you have to dig through to find it. So easiest way to do that, I think we talked about this in one session, is to just get a third-party resource like from Fiverr or outsourced or whatever, and say, here's the criteria I need, fill out this spreadsheet. I'm looking for principal names in Illinois. And they'll run their little spider programs and just pull all the names and phone numbers and kick them back to you, and they'll charge you like a very small fee to do that. I would be looking at that as an option for supporting that SDR. Just take a little small subset of your stuff and say, you know what, my territory is going to be the Midwest, and these 5 states in the Midwest, matter of fact. And so I'm going to just send that out for bid. And people will tell me, oh, I'll get you all the names in that category and you're going to pay 10 cents a name. Okay, great. They'll send you email, phone number, address, all the details around it that you want in your criteria. Pretty simple because it's all publicly available.
So Dan, if you have any resource and I can connect offline, would love to get some pointers to that.
Yeah, I mean, the easiest resource to look at is like one of those online, like Fiverr, Fiverr.com.
Yeah.
Or outsourced.
Needle in haystack. That's the problem with Fiverr. You have to know
It
what
is,
you're working.
It is, but when you jump into there, you'll get like 5 or 10 different bids on somebody doing that for you. And what you're asking for is like anybody can do it. You're not looking for some, I need really high quality person, because they're just writing a program that crawls a website, and anybody can do that has a little bit of knowledge around that. And so it's just like, if you can fill out this spreadsheet, I'll hire you. Give me a sample of your data, and I'll test it for accuracy. And if you're doing a good job, I'll buy the rest from you. Great. I no other criteria needed. I don't need to make sure that you're a high school graduate or that you have all, like, I don't need any, it's just, can you write this program and send me names that fit this criteria? If you can.
Okay. Got it.
So that because of the fact our market is that way, that it is so available in public,
right.
It's easier to just go down that path.
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then the SDR themselves, there has to be this culture of, like, it's not about excuses, it's about sharing the challenges and coming up with solutions for that. If you've got a problem, how do we fix it? Instead of just saying I have a problem so I can't make phone calls or I can't be successful. It's like, let's have a more of a growth mindset down this and figure out how we get to success. So send them to my SDR school. Send her to my SDR school.
No, he's way above SDR school. I told you, he thinks this is sales 101, B2.
Yeah. All right.
Maybe a bad habit.
What were we talking about? Oh, AEs. We're talking about AEs. Okay. So this is what we're going to measure with AEs. We're going to start way up at the top. Okay. So we're giving our AEs a quota. Okay. Our quota is a revenue-based quota. It is not a number of sales. It's an amount of money that they need to bring in in a given time period. Okay. The longer your sales cycle, the longer the intervals between the quota. So if your sales cycle is less than 6 months, you're going to go monthly on your quota. Okay. So you're going to say, every month I need you to close this amount of money. Okay. That doesn't mean that every month has to be the same number, because there is seasonality in our business. So we're going to go high in Q2 sometimes, and early Q3, we're going to dip down in other areas, right? And we're going to see that roller coaster through the year. Be reasonable, okay, with the quota. If you are greater than 6 months, you need to start thinking about quarterly quotas or annual quotas. Like if you're in that 2-year cycle, and it's like, that's pretty common in curriculum, in core curriculum sales or large sales of SIS systems or LMS systems or things like that, where there's a long-term big close and it takes this relationship to work through, right? So you're going to set a bigger quota for a full year's worth of time. Okay, and we'll just do milestones along the way. All right. So when we're judging, in order to judge quota, the next thing we really need to look at in this is we need to understand pipeline. Okay, so Ritu, this is where we're talking about sales stages, okay? So we've got to focus our energy and effort around the pipeline of our account executive, okay? So our pipeline, for those of you, it just help you understand terminology in this, pipeline is any active opportunity that your AEs are working, okay? Sometimes you don't want to look at the entire pipeline, right? We want to look at, usually we want to look at what a 90-day snapshot looks like. Okay? Because I would say the majority of us are going to be on monthly quotas, and we want to look at 90-day visibility and see out into the future a little bit and go, what's coming down the pipeline? Are you getting ready for what's coming? Are you going to be able to close enough? Okay, and the way that we look at our pipeline is that an average close rate for folks is going to be somewhere in that 25 to 30% post demo. Okay, so after a demo is complete, the average win rate would be that 25% mark. If that is where folks are, then you need to have, I wrote that backwards, but it's supposed to say 4x. We have to have 4x our quota, which means if our quota is $100,000 in a given month, that's a lot, but $100,000 in a month, they're going to need to enter that month with $400,000 in their pipeline that have close dates associated to that month, because we know we're going to lose a majority of those deals. Does that make sense for everybody? Okay, so if your close rate is 25% past that, some of the things you're going to be looking at is the things we want to measure on there or understand better is sales cycle. Okay. Sales cycle is important for just that very reason. If your average sales cycle is 30 days, 60 days, something like that, then entering into the month with 4x pipeline is exactly what you need to do, right? If your sales cycle is 90 days, then what the expectation is that when you enter that month, the sales stages are going to be higher for the people that you're going to close. They didn't just talk to them at the end of the previous month and they're going to close that same month. Not going to happen, right? So we have to start paying attention to more of the sales stages and saying, where are those deals that have a close date of this month? Where are they in the process? Okay, so sales cycle determines what we pay attention to here, okay, when we enter into the month. And so what we're going to start looking at are stage. We're going to look at time in stage. Okay, so if someone, this is a hard one, and it's a little bit more complex of a view of things, but you're going to start to understand how long it takes to move through your process. Okay. And if they just entered, let's say, the proposal stage, you're going to, at some point, gain enough knowledge that when someone enters the proposal stage, it typically takes 30 days from that day to really start to see it close. Okay? And so understanding the amount of time someone has been from stage to stage, I usually call that like the age. That's the age of our deal, the age of our opportunity. Okay. So Ritu, to your question really earlier in this conversation, we were talking about how do we know if this is going to close? I mean, these people just keep saying, yes, 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 it's going to close. But if you see someone that is in demo complete stage or in the demo stage, and they've been in that stage for 90 days, it's like, the heck are you doing with this thing? There has to be progression. And so if people are staying in stages too long, that is a huge problem, and it shows lack of progression. It shows lack of momentum, and it shows a deal that has stalled and the potential is very low. If the time and stage is low and they're just moving them through, that shows velocity and we're moving through and it's good. And you can feel more confident that that is something that's going to close. The other thing that gives me confidence that something is going to close is I want to make sure that every one of my account executives establishes the next step and defines what the next step is. I have two indicators there. I say, I want the next step details, like define what it is, and then I need the next step date. If you walk into a meeting with your account executive and sit down looking at the pipeline, and you see that half of their opportunities have a next step date in the past, those deals are in trouble. And you're like, what are you doing? Like, you haven't updated this record, or there's no, like, did you do that last step? What's the next step? Are we in touch with this person? Right? Does that make sense to folks? Okay. And so what you're wanting is someone to have very basic information in their opportunity to say, what are you going to do next with them? And when does that actually happen? Okay. I'm going to send them a proposal and meet with them to review that proposal. When are you going to meet with them? October 21st. That's my son's birthday. So that I feel very clear that you've got steps that are going to move forward, right? Bam, fam, you're working through, you've set meetings, everything's great. If they say, I'm going to send a proposal and the next step date is blank, well, when are you going to meet with them to talk about it? Well, we haven't established that yet. Ooh, momentum is lost a little bit there. How come we didn't set a next step date? How come we're not moving forward with this? Like, what do we need to get re-engaged with these folks? How are we, that potential is lower. Okay. Those are the things that we really care about, is that we're going to look at the stage. We're going to understand how long it's been in that stage, and we're going to understand what are they doing and when. Now, it can be overwhelming to look at someone's pipeline and look at everything. So usually I organize those things by the highest level stage. Like, if I've got opportunities that are in the negotiation stage and have a large dollar amount, those are the ones I'm focused on right away. I'm going, man, this is right at the verge of closing and it's a lot of money. What do we need to do to bring this across the finish line? Are you doing everything you need to? Okay. And then I will scan the rest of them, looking through for little red flags to talk to the person about. If everything is indicating great, I'm going to pass that opportunity up and not really spend time worrying too much about it. I'm going to focus with my rep about the problem opportunities that show red flags. Does that all sound good? You almost have to do this to have questions on it. You almost have to sit down with a sales rep and have this conversation, then be like, okay, that didn't go well. I'm gonna go back and have, we need to talk about it again. But these are the things to just keep in the back of your mind. Okay, we're gonna do pipeline review, and we're gonna make sure that that person has 4x the pipeline. I mean 4x of their quota, in order to say, I feel like they're healthy and they're doing their job. Okay. Any thoughts, questions, anything about this detail? Okay.
So Dan, there is a high level question here. We are talking about in a fully polished and little advanced companies, you have SDR and you have AEs. In a smaller company, you do it all person. So you have one person, if they are very experienced, they say, oh, all day long, I can't make calls. I'm the director and you're making me do calls. But then if you don't do calls, so how do you balance that you don't have a hierarchical, there's a AE, there's you, there's a AE, there's SDR team versus one person do it all.
Yeah. There are like, you're the one person doing it all in early stages, right? You're trying to juggle and spin plates and all this stuff, and you've got to balance your day to do the things that you know are the priorities in order to get the business in the right place. And so you expect that out of other people, but it's almost like saying, here's my baby to a babysitter. I hope you care and love this as much as I do. And it's just never going to happen, right? They're not going to do that. The ideal situation, if you're brand new to this and we don't have sales team yet, the ideal situation would be to say, I've always been selling, I'm running product, I'm doing all the other things, but I've always been the salesperson. And now I've got to start handing some of that off to somebody. Well, the first thing I hand off is the prospecting. It's the heaviest lift. It's the longest amount of time and energy. And it's the easiest thing for someone to take over from me. So I hire an SDR and I don't hire a salesperson. I just have that SDR tee up deals for me. And that's how I run my business, is that I have a prospector and they start generating opportunities for me, and those lead to me. And I work to close the deal and I make sure that process is flowing well. When I start seeing this SDR doing well, I'm like, why don't you come sit in on demos with me? Why don't you start learning that presentation process? And I promote them up to an AE and I backfill them with an SDR. And now I've got a little pod of people doing the work that I used to do, and I'm going to start managing them. And I grow that team until I'm like, okay, now I need a leader for that team, and I'm out of the sales biz and I'm focused on growing the business only, right? I'm focused on going. So that is kind of the ideal scenario that you would manage to. Now, as a leader, when you overwhelmed by all these things, then you say, I just need to get a sales leader in here to take over. I just need to bring them in here and bring this person in and take over that department. There's a lot of hiccups that happen with that, where a sales leader will come in and you've hired somebody with 15 years of experience and things of that nature, and they go, I'm more into the strategy, I'm more into the thought process, so they're not executors. And so like, I don't make phone calls. I'm not going to do that stuff anymore. I'm not going to lower myself to go back in my career to do all those things. I'm going to work my network and I'm just going to create strategies and ideas. Like, doesn't work. And you waste a year hoping that person is going to do something for you. And all they do is talk and complain and say, these are the things we need to do to be successful, right? So that can tend to be a bigger problem when you hire somebody that is that experienced in it, and they come and they're like, I can do this, but they don't do it.
Yeah. Okay.
Because they're used to working at a company that has had all of those resources and the names out there a little bit more, and they've made all these relationships, and now they move and they're like, where's all my stuff that made me successful?
I mean, we are conscious of the fact that they have worked in a startup. You are not selling Microsoft Windows. That's going to just sell itself. I'm not hiring you for that. We are very clear about that. And the reason I was thinking is that if we have a senior person who can, what we call it, cradle to grave all the way through, then that's true growth of company, right? At some point, as a founder, I should give that away to people or whoever leader in a position, say, you go run sales, you go.
What happens with that is that, like, when you start a little bit slower and say, let me start from the bottom up and grow, there's many benefits. One, it's inexpensive. You're hiring somebody at a lower salary, lower pay rate, and they take a high load of energy off of your plate, right? They do all the prospecting and all the work down that path. And you have the ability to grow that person and develop them the way that you want them to run the process and the way that you want things to be done. And so you get to control things a little bit better as well. And then you promote from that internally, and you're always hiring at the low level. right? You're hiring at the lowest cost until you're ready to hire a leader of that team. When you start at the top, that person brings baggage, good or bad. They're bringing baggage. They're
So is there a recommended
So-
experience level for an SDR, like no more than 3 to 5 years experience? Is
no
that,
more than a year and a half.
sorry, say
like-
that again?
No more than a year and a half of experience from an SDR before. So two things. One, I'm not going to hire an SDR that has more than a year and a half, 2 years of experience in that role as an SDR. And the reason behind that, because are a short-term cycle. They work through this role and they either get really good at it and get promoted, or they're mediocre and they move to another company and do the same mediocre job and move to the next company and do the same mediocre job, right? There's the rare case where someone is a career SDR that just kills it and loves it, but that does exist, right? So I had one of those who was a sped teacher for 9 years, came on board, worked with us for 6 years as an SDR and just destroyed it every month. Had a fabulous time. Also helped him get his love of painting back, and is now like has paintings on walls of places and is doing fun with that side of it too. So it's like you do find those nuggets, those little nuggets somewhere, and it's like that's amazing, but that's not the typical. And so I don't hire anybody with more than a year experience in it, because they're like, if they've got a year, it's like, okay, you've got enough experience to know how to do this, but maybe you're not, it wasn't a good fit in the company and you needed just a better fit, and we're going to take you to the next level. But that, if you're hiring higher than that, it usually is because that person was not very good at what they did, and they're just trying to find another place to not be very good.
Okay.
So, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Let's talk about higher level metrics too, because I want you to be able to look down on your company on the sales side of things. And we'll just talk about things to consider, things to look at when you're looking at your data, okay? So we've got our individual people in place. And when you've got one, everything's fine. We just have our little reports and we look at the one person and we manage the one person. However, when your team starts to grow, we want to share reports with them that show competition. So we need to start putting team-based reports together that show all the things we were talking about before, activity-based metrics, closed data, things like that. So when an AE looks at their business, they're going to look at, that report that's going to say, January, February, March, April, right on. And we're going to see, this is what Jim did, it's what Sally did, it's what Steve did in January, right? And we're going to start doing little comparison graphs that show the different people and their progress compared to other people. Okay, so the things that I care about on this type of report is how many sales have happened and how many dollars are associated to those in a given month. Okay, that helps you understand your average deal size, which will help you forecast in the future. Okay, if you have multiple products, you're breaking it down by product as well. Okay, so when you've got those two indicators by date, and you say, I need to know units and dollars sold every month, okay, then you're able to start slicing and dicing those in so many different ways to help understand your target better and where you're seeing momentum, who you're seeing momentum with, right? So the things that I would consider in this area are all the things that are your criteria around what your ideal customer profile is, okay? And so we're going to want to break it down by state. We're going to want to take a deep dive and say which states are generating big dollars for us right now. Am I seeing momentum in any given state where I want to do a campaign or drive more activity in that state? We're going to look at size, okay? And we're going to break things down into tiers and say districts less than 2,500 student count, 25 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 50 and greater, right? And we're going to be just like whatever your tier is, I just made those up. But whatever your tiers are, we're going to say, am I starting to see traction and growth in a given tier or in a given set of tiers, right? This is going to help you start to forecast your business and drive future campaigns and like focus the troops, right? So if marketing is sending out messages in a general way and we're getting some inbound flow of leads and we go like, ooh, we're getting some good deals in Texas that are starting to go. And it's in between that 5,000 and 10,000 student count. All right, the person in that territory is this. Let's do a big push in that area and see what happens. That's where we're going to start generating some more. Hey, let's stop messaging in these states because we're not getting any traction in there. Let's focus our attention in other areas. Let's buy more leads for this area because we're getting back. Does that make sense? Right? All we want to do is we want to be able to say, how many deals are we closing and at what size to get an average and to understand? And then we're just going to take that data and start slicing it by different pieces of the puzzle that make sense to us. And these are two really, really great indicators for us. You can also use, like, if you're really early and you're still trying to figure out your ideal customer profile, we can use type, and that could be like charter, public, private, and be like, oh, I'm getting some traction in the charter world. Things like that. All making sense? Okay. There's so many metrics, so many things you can think about, so many different ideas to work off of and all this, but it really is like this high level stuff, right? Just look at the number of deals you're closing and start analyzing the closed won deals and see where we're going to rally the troops in different areas. Okay. Yes.
So Dan, quick question. Isn't that something you will do day one on top of your funnel? So for example, when we are selling to colleges, we use a whole bunch of criteria, including state, size, number of students we have, type of college, blah, blah, blah. There are 3 or 4 different segmentation, what I call segmentation. That's for the marketing. Before you make very first call on sales or before you send very first email, you need to do that, not at this late stage, right? So you say, here's my target. I'm going to go after 4-year public colleges in Iowa.
Right. Great place.
So I'm confused now. Are you bringing that back at the later part in the sales funnel when you are evaluating or the performance as a company? Is like, where are we doing good? Are we on track with what we thought where we'll be popular, or are we truly popular in some other areas?
Absolutely. That's exactly right. You're doing that at the front and the end. You do that right at the beginning and say, I am establishing my theories on where I feel like we're going to be good. It's based on some good data, but we haven't done enough activity to really validate it fully. So here's my ideal customer profile in my mind. Now we execute. And I take that ideal customer profile criteria and I slice all of my closed won deals by that to go, am I following it? Does it feel like we're on the right path, or do I need to narrow it differently or expand it differently? Do I need to change that in any way? Right? So this is going to inform your future plans as you start building this information out, right? The other thing we need to look at too, it's not just the closed won deals, but the closed lost deals, right? Why did we lose those dang things, right? So every sales rep who is in charge of a deal that close that you lose needs to fill out two things. They need to fill out one that is the closed lost reason. Okay. We have to have a closed lost reason, and that field is multiple choice. It is not type in free form text. It's lost to competitor, lost to status quo, lost to withdrawn, like not interested any, things like that. You have to put specific choices that they have to choose the reason why they lost it. And then the second one is detail. This is the free form spot where they give you the closed loss detail that they can say, I lost to this specific competitor, or the reason why they stayed with status quo was, things like that to help inform you a little bit more. But you need to run a report pretty much I would say at the minimum every quarter, and go looking back at your closed lost and understand those better. And saying,
That's exactly what we did. Actually, we call it closed lost reason. And I said, no, it's got to be dropped down. It can't be free text. So yes, it is dropped down, and similar reasons that you mentioned. And actually we do one more thing. After 3 months, we reach back out to those people again, saying, hey, is now a better time for us to connect?
An advanced tip I was just going to share was, as the company gets to a level, your sales reps are again, they're very optimistic people that think everybody loves them and they do no wrong, right? And so their closed lost reason is going to be a little bit jaded by their opinions of themselves and their ability. And so as you grow a little bit further and have the resources, there's opportunity to do a closed lost campaign where you reach out to those folks and interview them around the reason why, like their experience with the company and why they might not have moved forward, and you may get a totally different response. It may be the sales rep experience was way too aggressive and didn't feel like he understood or she understood me, things like that, that'll help inform you a little bit better. But early stages, just have them choose so that you can start putting them into categories and understand. And when we get the full marketing team and the sales team, and you might kick a report back to the marketing team and say, run a campaign to see if we can get these folks to get on an interview and learn a little bit more about what's going on with our closed lost. Okay.
That brings up. Yeah.
I was going to say, you're right. There's categories in those closed losts where it makes sense to say, not the right time, therefore call back in 3 months, call back in 6 months, whatever that is. So yes, absolutely.
So the one question is, which is actually $1 million question, going to whether it is, hey, tell me why you didn't buy, or hey, give me next demo, or whatever that is. How do you get time on these people's calendar? Because SDR are prospects. So SDRs are very positive, very, optimistic. I have gone on the other end of the spectrum. I'm very pessimistic right now. Okay, when people say, oh, do this, do that. Yeah, sure. It's all good to talk about, but you don't get time with these prospects. If I were to run a campaign, even if I had the resources, hey, tell me why didn't you buy? They don't give a about what I'm asking them. They don't have time. I feel like these people are running like hamster on a wheel all day long. Yeah, absolutely. You're going to get a smaller percentage. Not everybody's going to respond and say, sure, I'll tell you why I didn't buy. You're going to get a smaller percentage of those folks, and you're going to try a couple of different ways of doing that. You can incent them with a gift card. You can do it through a third-party organization who's not you, and they're reaching out, and they do this on a regular basis. So they have a plan on how to manage that campaign and get people to engage. Or you can call as the founder of the company, trying to learn. You send emails that are more like, this is, I'm gonna pay more attention to this one because this is a founder who cares about their business and trying to figure it out, not some general survey that's being sent to them.
It's like, do you have 15 minutes? I can just sit down with you and understand a little bit more why. We're always looking to learn and gain some knowledge. No pressure to try to move back in this way. I'm not interested in selling you. I'm just interested in improving our processes, improving our steps and understanding better. And you'll get a small percentage of people to say yes. That's all you need. You don't need everybody to respond.
Got it.
You know, just need a small window into it to see some, right?
Yeah. And we do, by the way, just as a side note, is after they say no, we always ask for the feedback. Hey, tell us why. Is it product? Is it price? Is it your, there are like 3 or 4 different reasons we tell them, very generic. We'll appreciate. So we are always looking to improve the product.
Yeah. Perfect. All right, what else did I want to cover? This is basic stuff. I do want to get into driving scale. Like all we've been teaching right now is around building a process, executing on the process, but how do we execute on the process? What systems are involved in that? That is something I just wanted to touch on a little bit more to make sure you guys understand the tools that can help really add volume to the work and effort that you guys are putting in to drive prospecting, okay? So, or drive demand, right? So if we don't have any more questions about this, let's talk about a couple of different systems. Make sure everybody understands those. The first thing, like really early stage, nobody has a real CRM in place. Everybody understands CRM terminology, customer relationship management tool. It's a basic database, right? It's the first thing we get in place. Their CRM. Common CRMs are like Salesforce, and HubSpot. Basic is there's one called Pipedrive. There's another one called Zoho. Okay, so all different CRMs. This is essential. You have to have a CRM in place to have teams and grow your business in any way. So when you get past the 2-3 people on a team, it's like we got to grow, not on a team, but in a company. We've got to understand what's going on. We need a database of our customers. We need a database of our prospects. We need to know what activity we're doing. And we don't want to step on each other's toes and things of that nature, right? So all this really is a database of information about each and every one of the people that we've touched. It can be organized by account level and then contacts underneath that account. You can break it down by like, here's the district, here's all the schools under the district, here's all the people under the district, under the schools, and then you can put your opportunities in there. It is incredibly hard to manage the process that we've discussed in previous sessions around making phone calls, sending emails without a CRM to remind you what the next thing is, what you did previously, right? So that's what a CRM is for, is to build your tasks in there, build your data, move things through, okay? It's a little clunky just using a CRM. So if you want to take it to the next level and really scale up the prospecting efforts for both an SDR team and an AE team, you can add what they call a sales enablement tool. Okay, so sales enablement. Okay, lots of letters. Sales enablement tool, that's basically saying, we talked about an outreach cadence of calls, emails, social, all that stuff, right? What a sales enablement tool does is it takes and gives you a system in which you can build that cadence in and create automations around everything so that the people that are executing on that outreach just have to make phone calls and that is it. They don't have to send the emails, they automatically get sent. They don't have to create a new task. A new task is automatically created. They don't have to do anything but make the phone calls because the cadence, the system manages the steps for them. All right. When you're using a CRM, there's a lot of human error that happens where someone just kind of skips and goes, oops, I didn't do that step, or I forgot which step I was on, or I'm doing it multiple steps wrong, things of that nature. In a sales enablement tool, you eliminate all those problems because you build the steps to automatically occur and happen. Okay, common sales enablement tools are Outreach, Outreach.io, and SalesLoft. Okay, those are separate tools that can be added to any one of these. So Outreach.io and SalesLoft are those two. And Salesforce has an add-on called High Velocity. High Velocity. HubSpot has Sequences. That's their automated process. Okay. These two don't have either one of those. Okay. So when you buy a CRM like a Salesforce or a HubSpot, you're getting these two things in one system. You just have to pay more for them, just like if you were buying it on its own. Okay. So that's really like saying we're driving some big scale with this because it gives you the opportunity to create workflows and processes and things like that that enhance the standard outreach cadence. Okay. So if you have one person kind of walking through and able to make 50 calls in a day, 60 calls in a day, and they're executing through this, the big challenges, like I said, with a CRM is that this person is only human. They're going to send the wrong email. They're going to skip a contact. They're going to forget to call a group. They're going to make mistakes along the way, and you have no way, no easy way to track, are they following what you prescribed or not? You have to build a lot into what they do in order to say they're following it. It's very hard to measure that in a tool that doesn't have sales enablement associated to it. But if you move to an outreach program or a SalesLoft program or use Sequences in HubSpot or any of that, basically you're going to get a report that says all first calls were made on time, emails were sent out, here's the response rate to those emails, third call was made on this day. You're going to know that who went through the cadences, what the progress of the cadence was, if everything was on time. You're going to know exactly what happened. You're also going to have a high level of control over it because you're going to be able to manipulate emails in there and have those emails just be in the background that an SDR doesn't have to write or type up or do. Okay, they're just going to be something that goes out on their own. Does that all make sense to everybody? It's an amazing extra add-on tool that it's costly. It's an expense, but you have to weigh the numbers of being able to say, man, this person can do so much more if they didn't have to do all the extra work every time they made a phone call. Okay, could turn them into 100 calls a day and be great. The other thing that it can happen with some of these tools, just as an FYI, you can do things like email only cadences that based on a behavior that happens with the email. Let's say, for example, someone opens it 3 times and clicks a link. That is your indication that this person is engaged with your content. And so it will automatically create a call task for your SDR. That way I can send, let's say I'm going to send 300 emails and only 10% of those are going to be engagers. So I'm going to have them make 30 phone calls and they don't call anybody else because they're not engaged in my content. That way my SDRs are now hyper-focused on the people that are interested in what I'm sending out and are engaged in it and not focused on the rest. So now we're getting really moving up the scale. So yes, Mike.
That you kind of just took it right out of my head. I was wondering, given limited time as a startup, is that a reasonable way to try and just get a better idea much quicker? And so when you said in past 15 calls a day as a founder, really stay on that cadence. I want to know those first 15 people are really well qualified. And I looked at your sequence, and I don't want to send out 10,000 emails, but do you think instead of email and call, do a couple emails, really look for those multiple open rates, have all of those get put into a separate list, and then jump on those with my 15 a day is a reasonable approach?
It is a reasonable approach, yes.
Okay.
It is a reasonable approach to say, I am going to add more people to the sequence and I'm only going to call the people that are engaged. Yes, I've done that with success. It's helpful to target yourself a little bit more. It's almost like saying it's a combination of a marketing and a sales approach in one, where marketing is doing the flyover ground, the bombing, the carpet bombing and softening the beaches, and we're sweeping in and picking up the rest of the pieces as the sales team. So you can think about it like that and say, my cadence is the normal cadence that has been prescribed. Take the phone calls out for the people that are not engaging.
Got it. Okay.
If they engage, make the phone calls. If they do not, don't.
Got it.
So
I realized I've run people through 4 or 5 emails, called them at the end, and I think it's what you said before. They're like, I think I know you. Who are you again? And I'm worried I didn't get their attention span enough. So if I only call at the end, I'm not quite seeing that same impact. So I'm trying to find that happy medium. Maybe after 2 emails, a lot of opens. Okay, jump on those folks. Let it continue for the rest.
Yeah, you can play around with how many emails and things like that. But calling earlier in the cadence is helpful because you want to be, you are going to have this passion you're going to share on a voicemail with them that nobody else can share. You're going to have this confidence and passion that they're going to hear in that, and they're going to connect a little bit more. So I would try to push your initial call up in the front end a little bit more, and then get the social connect in some way, like just go visit their profile on LinkedIn if they have one, so that they can start putting faces with a name and getting that voicemail with it, like, ooh, this guy really cares. He understands things a little bit better. And then when you call back, they're going to be a lot more of an impact and a click when you get them at the right moment. So
thank you.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So CRMs, sales enablement tools. The only other one I wanted to mention too is kind of like our marketing automation tools. We were just talking about this overlay of marketing that needs to be done as well. Doing sales in a vacuum is really difficult. When we don't have any support from any other group or organization, that's why marketing really exists. Marketing exists as a vendor for sales. Basically, sales is their customer, and they're trying to drive opportunity. Higher level quality leads for the sales team to work, right? And so we have to have some way to do more of a mass outreach, more of awareness campaigning, doing things that are going to drive understanding of our product out into the market, okay? And so having some kind of marketing automation tool is helpful. It is not required, okay? It is not like you have to have this in order to grow at a higher level. You just have to think about marketing in a way of the one-to-many approach. Sales is the one-to-one approach. Marketing is the one-to-many approach. And you have to have a way to blast larger lists of content out there. So you're going to need some kind of, like, at the very basic, some kind of email tool to blast messages out so we don't hurt our domain in any way. We want to get like a MailChimp or a Constant Contact or some kind of tool that'll help us with that. Now, HubSpot does do that, and they do have a marketing component to it. Salesforce allows you to send mass emails out of it, but you have also a marketing component to it that you have to add on called Pardot. Okay, so these different tools to blast bigger emails out is kind of the minimum you're going to need. You don't want to do that from your main domain. Like, you don't want to send 10,000 emails out from your Gmail account. You want to go and use one of these systems to send. Okay. So if you're doing marketing and blasting large quantities of emails, do it that way. Yes,
Dan,
sir.
In HubSpot, you can send out 1,000 emails from Mike at Give Thanks if you want. Can that potentially threaten the reputation of my domain?
So there's two different versions of HubSpot's contacts in there. They're going to say this is a marketing contact or a sales contact. If you do it through sequences and through clicking on a button that's in the contact record, it should go through your standard domain, right? If you do a marketing-based email, I do believe that Spot will send it through some kind of protocol to make sure that it's trickled out instead of, just blasted out. And so it'll help you not run into those problems of seeing that deliverability issue. Like for the support that sales needs is with these awareness campaigns are things like, let's do a webinar. Let's do a quick webinar and gather a group of people together and have a customer share about their experience with us or talk about the problem and what they used to solve the problem. Let's do a lunch and learn and invite a bunch of people to come to this lunch and learn so they can learn about our product a little bit more. Let's do these one-to-many group setting events that will generate awareness about our product. That's what we need to be doing. But we don't do that through just a list of 200 people or a list of 100 people here. It's like, let's send the email to all the northeast side of Texas, or let's send it to the entire state of Arkansas and see if we can't get them all together in a group meeting about this. Let's blast it to the East Coast. And so when you're doing big things like that, we don't want to do that through our like open up Gmail and start putting email addresses in there. We need a tool to send that out. Okay. We need to do that. Those things are those type of events, those type of activities are going to be pretty critical to helping the success of your sales team because they need that awareness. They need that, like softening the beaches, basically, conversation. So just going cold the whole time is going to be hard.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Any other thoughts on this, on like systems? It's kind of basic stuff, but just wanted to make sure you guys were aware of it.
Just to give you a data point, Dan, on HubSpot, actually, there is a program called HubSpot for Startups. They have very heavy discount for first year. It's 90%. Second year goes down to 50, I believe. Third year, you're back in the full arm and leg payment. It is very expensive. So one thing, if you are picking up CRM, any CRM, especially HubSpot, don't get carried away by 90% discount. Think a little bit on the longer term that are you able to and willing to pay the amount of money it will require? Because once you start using a CRM, it's literally getting married and being in bed every day. You can't get out. Seriously.
No, it's like a dealer. Like, hey, you want a little bit of this? Next one's going to cost you. Like, oh yeah, once you get hooked on this stuff and get all your data in it, you don't want to move any of that stuff.
You become captive audience. You cannot leave them. There's no divorce in CRM. Just saying.
It's much harder than a normal divorce, I'll tell you that.
Absolutely. I don't have resources to divorce my CRM. I may have resources to divorce my husband. So.
All right, I have gotten to the end of my content that I wanted to share today. We got about 20 minutes left on the day. So if there are other topics or other things you would like to discuss, happy to be available and talk through any of that. But that is what I wanted to share today. We were focused on what metrics do we want to look at? How do we manage these people a little bit better? The next session is going to be very focused on building your team. Okay. Now we know how to leverage them, how to manage them, how to work through all the metrics. It's like, okay, now let's hire them. Like, what does that look like? We've already touched on a little bit of like, how do we hire from the bottom up and grow that and some of the problems that we have there. But we're going to talk about what does it look like to interview somebody in this role, and how do we put a job description out there the right way, and how do we what kind of meetings are important in order to manage those folks the right way? How do we onboard those people? You know, we're going to go through that whole thing. Okay.
So Dan, that's a good point that I was going to bring up. Two ideas I had. One is for you to consider as a business. I think you should offer services to interview people we want you to interview, right? So that's just one idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. And second is, I mean, these classes are great. I think it will be a great add-on if there could be some pre or post homework, info sharing, whatever you want to call it. So for example, for next week, do you have a job description that you can share in advance for us to review or use? And then I can compare that with R and say, oh, this is where we suck. This is where we need to fix.
Yes. So Ritu, I'm glad you brought that up. This is a course that I run on a regular basis. I do it every season. I do this, but I'm doing this in a free manner. So all the resources that I have on the back end are not necessarily something I provide here. Like in the course, I give you a playbook and I say, here is your playbook. Start filling it out with the things that we work on. And here's all the persona documents. And so here's a persona for a principal, for a superintendent, for a curriculum director, for all of these folks. And we've built all that out. And then here's all the job descriptions. Here's questions to ask during the hiring process. Here's an onboarding template to onboard someone through that. Here's example compensation structure, things like that. So, and I give homework each week where I'm saying, fill this stuff out, then bring it back to me, and I will tell you whether or not you need to adjust anything or change anything. And so we build out your messaging framework, we build out all your scripting, so I just decided that I wanted to offer this up to the people of Found Ed, the members of Found Ed, to be able to say that I think the content itself is valuable and could be really helpful. You know, so I wanted to offer that up, but I think the other pieces of the puzzle too, if you want me to dive deeper on your specific issues or your specific company, I'd be really happy to do that too. You know, and I have interviewed a lot of people for other companies to help them get past that stage. So
Okay.
happy to do that too.
Okay.
Salespeople are so interesting to interview, sales leaders and salespeople, because they get you talking down a path that's just like, let's talk about your dog and the sports team. And then by the time you get done with it, you don't even know if they can sell for you. You just know, I like that person.
No offense. After interviewing salespeople, I feel like I'm losing my faith in humanity.
Well, you're probably an interviewer then.
I'm too trusting, I guess.
Yeah. So.
Thank you, Dan.
Great.
This is great as always.
No problem, sir. No problem. All right. Well, if no more questions, I think I'm done.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Appreciate it.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thanks.
Really appreciate it.
you.
Next
As
Thank you, Dan.
always.
All right. We'll see you all next week.
Thank you, Jan. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.